The message came on a Tuesday. Dr. Maya Lin was halfway through her coffee when the alert pinged on her tablet. At first, she dismissed it as another false positive. Deep space was noisy, and their algorithms flagged anomalies weekly. But this one persisted, blinking with unusual urgency on her screen. "Eli," she called across the observatory's main floor, her voice betraying more excitement than she intended. "Are you seeing this?" Eli Navarro looked up from his workstation, his young face illuminated by multiple screens. Unlike Maya, who'd spent 15 years at the Global Space Initiative chasing whispers from the stars, Eli had been with them barely 18 months. What he lacked in experience, he made up for with an almost preternatural talent for pattern recognition. "I'm seeing something, he confirmed, fingers already flying across his keyboard. "But I'm not sure what I'm seeing." Maya abandoned her coffee and crossed to his station. The signal displayed on his monitor was unlike anything in their catalog. Not the regular pulses of a pulsar, not the random noise of cosmic background radiation, and certainly not the deliberate patterns of human satellites. "Where is it coming from?" she asked, leaning closer. "That's the interesting part." Eli pulled up a star map. "It's originating from HD 2Y9134, about 21 light-years from Earth, the exoplanet in its habitable zone." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. HD 21994 had been on their observation list for years, a promising K-type star with several planets, but all previous scans had shown no technological signatures, no evidence of civilization. "This isn't random," she murmured, studying the undulating patterns. "There's structure here, complexity, recursion." "I'm running it through every decryption protocol we have," Eli said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Maya, this could be it. The real thing." She wanted to caution him against premature excitement. She'd seen too many promising signals dissolve into natural phenomena or human interference. But something about this one felt different. It had layers, harmonics, mathematical consistencies that seemed deliberate. "Alert Director Chen," she said, then corrected herself. "I mean Director Wilson. And get me the raw data. I want to examine this myself before we tell anyone else." Within hours, the observatory was humming with controlled chaos. By evening, other listening posts around the world had confirmed the signal. By midnight, it was headline news globally. "Unknown signal detected from nearby star system." Maya watched the media frenzy from the sanctuary of her office, door locked against the throng of reporters already gathering outside the facility. 21 years of scientific discipline fought against the hope rising in her chest. She'd been wrong before, catastrophically wrong, in a way that had nearly ended her career 8 years ago when she'd mistakenly identified an instrumental artifact as a potential alien signature. The academic ridicule had been merciless. Not this time. This time, she would be methodical, cautious, impeccable in her analysis. Her phone rang. It was her former mentor, Dr. Abigail Okoye, now advisor to the UN Space Commission. "Maya," Abigail's voice was tight with controlled excitement. "Tell me honestly, is this real?" Maya closed her eyes, weighing her words carefully. "It's unprecedented," she said finally. "The signal contains embedded patterns that suggest intelligent origin. It's multi-layered, with mathematical consistencies that don't occur naturally. And it's directed at us, specifically at Earth. An answer to our broadcasts? Possibly, or something else entirely." Maya hesitated. "Abby, there's something else. The signal. It's changing, evolving, even as we study it. As if it's responding to our attention." The silence on the other end spoke volumes. "The Security Council is convening an emergency session," Abigail said finally. "They're talking about sending a mission." Maya's heart skipped. "A mission? That's years away. Technologically, we'd need..." "The Prometheus project is being fast-tracked," They've been developing an experimental drive system in secret for a decade. Maya. They're saying it could reach HD 2199934 in under 5 years. Maya sank into her chair. The Prometheus project was supposed to be theoretical, a next-generation propulsion system that could achieve a significant fraction of light speed. If it was real. If it worked. They'll need a science team, she said. They'll need the best, Abigail confirmed. And despite what happened with the Barnard's Star incident, your name is at the top of their list. Maya felt her throat tighten. Redemption, after all these years. A chance to be remembered for discovery instead of failure. I'll need Eli, she said. He's the best xenolinguist we have, so if anyone can decode this message, it's him. I'll make it happen, Abigail promised. Get some rest. Maya, everything changes tomorrow. But sleep was impossible. Maya spent the night with the signal, watching it shift and pulse like something alive. By morning, she had reached one inescapable conclusion. Whatever was sending this message wasn't just intelligent, it was trying very hard to be understood. 18 months later, Maya stood in the observation deck of the International Space Command Center, watching the final preparations for humanity's first interstellar mission. The Prometheus vessel gleamed in the distance, its revolutionary drive system the culmination of secret international cooperation that would have been unthinkable before the signal. Nervous? Eli appeared beside her, looking both professional and boyish in his mission uniform. At 28, he was the youngest specialist on the primary crew. Terrified, Maya admitted with a small smile. You? Beyond words. His eyes shone with barely contained excitement. Maya, we're going to meet them. The others. The ones who sent the message. We don't know that, she cautioned. The signal could be automated. The civilization that created it might be long gone. Then we'll be archaeologists instead of diplomats. Eli shrugged. Either way, we'll be the first humans to know for certain we're not alone. A deep voice interrupted them. If we survive the journey. They turned to find Commander Raj Patel approaching, his weathered face serious beneath close-cropped salt and pepper hair. At 49, Patel was a veteran of 3 Mars missions and had commanded the first crewed mission to Jupiter's moons. His selection as mission commander had been unanimous. Commander, Maya nodded respectfully. Despite working together during the intensive training period, Patel maintained a professional distance from the science team. Dr. Lin, Navarro, he acknowledged them both. Final briefing in 30 minutes. After that, we board. No turning back. Yes, sir. They responded in unison. As Patel moved away, Eli whispered, He still thinks this is a mistake, doesn't he? Maya watched the commanders retreating back. He thinks it's a risk. And he's right. But worth taking. I hope so. Maya touched the small pendant hidden beneath her uniform, a piece of meteorite her father had given her when she was 10. The night they'd watched a meteor shower together, and she'd decided to become an astronomer. I really hope so. The final briefing was tense. General Laura Hammond, overall mission director, didn't mince words. The eyes of the world are on you. She told the assembled crew of 7, You carry humanity's hopes, curiosity, and yes, our fears. Your primary mission is scientific. Investigate the source of the signal and determine its nature and purpose. Your secondary mission is diplomatic. If you encounter sentient beings, establish peaceful contact if possible. She paused, her gaze sweeping across each face. But your ultimate responsibility is to Earth. Any technology, knowledge, or entities you encounter must be evaluated for potential threat before being brought back or transmitted home. Commander Patel has final authority on all decisions. If he determines the mission threatens Earth's security, you are authorized to abort and return immediately. Maya felt a chill at the words. The signal had seemed benevolent, a complex mathematical tapestry interwoven with what they believed were emotional harmonics, based on how the patterns affected human brain activity when translated to sound. But humanity's history was filled with encounters where technological superiority had led to subjugation. The caution wasn't unwarranted. "Questions?" Hammond asked. Silence filled the room. "Then Godspeed," she said softly, "and come home safe." Boarding the Prometheus was surreal. The vessel was larger than any previous spacecraft, with separate modules for the revolutionary drive system, crew quarters, scientific laboratories, and a sophisticated communication array capable of maintaining contact with Earth despite the increasing light delay. Maya's personal quarters were Spartan but private, a blessing for someone who valued solitude. She secured her few personal items, the meteorite pendant, a digital frame with photos of her parents and sister, and a small, smooth stone from a beach in Thailand where she'd once watched the Perseids with a lover whose name she now struggled to remember. A gentle chime indicated the pre-launch sequence had begun. Maya made her way to the main command deck, where the rest of the crew was gathering. Commander Patel, Eli, Dr. Sophia Rodriguez, their medical officer and biologist, Chief Engineer Marcus Kim, Security and Systems Specialist Aisha Okafor, and Dr. James Harlow, geologist and planetary scientist. They strapped into their acceleration couches as Patel established contact with Mission Control. "Prometheus ready for departure," he reported, his voice steady. "Prometheus, you are cleared for launch," came General Hammond's reply. "Initiate when ready." Patel's fingers moved across his control panel. "Initiating launch sequence. May God have mercy on our souls." Maya caught Eli's eye across the deck. The young linguist gave her a tight smile, equal parts terror and elation. They were really doing this, leaving Earth to investigate a message from the stars. The launch was smoother than Maya had expected. The Prometheus's revolutionary drive created artificial gravity through controlled space-time manipulation rather than acceleration, eliminating the crushing G-forces of traditional rockets. As Earth dwindled behind them, a strange calm settled over the crew. "Prometheus drive functioning within optimal parameters," Engineer Kim reported. "We are on course for the HD 29134 system. Estimated arrival in 4 years, 8 months, 17 days. "Thank you, Marcus," Patel acknowledged. "All crew will maintain standard operating procedures for the first week. After that, we'll begin the rotation to long-journey protocols. Dr. Lin, the science team may begin preliminary work on signal analysis as soon as we're stabilized." Maya nodded. "Yes, Commander." As the others dispersed to their stations, Maya remained a moment longer, watching Earth become a pale blue dot on their view screens. Was this how the Voyager felt, she wondered, carrying humanity's message into the void? And now they were following, chasing an answer they might not be prepared to understand. She thought of the signal, still broadcasting its enigmatic message toward Earth. In the months since its discovery, they'd made progress in deciphering its mathematical components, but were still baffled by the emotional resonances it created. Some researchers reported feelings of profound peace when exposed to certain frequencies. Others experienced inexplicable sorrow or wonder. Whatever awaited them at HD 2199134, Maya knew with bone-deep certainty that it would change everything. For her, for the crew, for humanity itself. The only question was whether they were ready for that change. She wasn't sure they were. She wasn't sure they could be. But they were going anyway. The years in deep space changed them all. Maya had expected the physical changes, the subtle muscle atrophy despite their rigorous exercise regimen, the slight elongation of their spines and the artificial gravity. What she hadn't anticipated was how the mission would reshape their minds, their relationships, their very sense of self. Commander Patel became both more rigid and more philosophical. enforcing protocols with military precision while spending his off hours reading ancient texts on human encounters with the divine. Sofia Rodriguez, their doctor, developed an almost obsessive interest in extremophile life forms, constantly running simulations of how Earth biology might adapt to alien environments. Marcus Kim spoke less and less, communicating primarily through technical reports while his brilliant engineering mind kept the Prometheus functioning flawlessly. Eli changed perhaps the most and least. His youthful enthusiasm matured into focused brilliance as he immersed himself in the signal. Now stronger and more complex as they approached its source, he'd constructed an immersive interface that translated the signal's patterns into multisensory experiences, visual, auditory, even tactile through specialized gloves. "It's not just a message," he told Maya during their third year of travel. I don't have the words. It's like they're trying to teach us how to perceive differently before we arrive." They, Maya, raised an eyebrow. "You're convinced it's a current civilization?" Eli hesitated. "I'm convinced it's alive. Somehow. The patterns. They respond to us. Maya. Not just to our transmissions, but to how we interpret them. Like a conversation across light years." Maya had noticed it too. Subtle shifts in the signal that seemed to correspond with their analytical approaches, as if whatever generated it was learning them as they learned it. "Show me what you found," she said. Eli led her to his lab, where the walls were covered in visual representations of signal fragments, fractal patterns, wave harmonics, color sequences that shifted and flowed. He handed her a neural interface headset. "I've been working on this for months," he explained. "It combines all sensory translations simultaneously. It's intense, but I think it's closer to how they meant it to be experienced." Maya hesitated, then put on the headset. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, colors exploded behind her eyes, not just seen but somehow felt. Harmonies cascaded through her mind, creating shapes and textures that evoked emotions she had no names for. Mathematical sequences unfolded like living organisms, growing and evolving and responding to her awareness of them. It was overwhelming, beautiful, terrifying, and somehow familiar, as if it touched something fundamental in her consciousness that had always been there, waiting to be awakened. When Eli removed the headset several minutes later, Maya was trembling. What was that?" she whispered. "That's what I've been trying to tell you," Eli said, his eyes alight. "It's not just a message, Maya. It's an invitation. They're inviting us to experience reality the way they do. Or conditioning us," came Commander Patel's voice from the doorway. Neither had heard him enter. "Rewiring our brains for their purposes." Eli straightened. "Commander, with respect, there's no evidence of harmful intent. The signal affects our neurochemistry in ways we don't fully understand." Patel interrupted. "Dr. Rodriguez has been monitoring brain scans. Your extended exposures are showing changes in your neural pathways." "Navarro." "Beneficial changes," Eli insisted. "Enhanced pattern recognition, improved sensory integration, changing the human mind to make it more compatible with alien concepts," Patel countered. "I'm limiting exposure to the raw signal. All further analysis will be conducted on isolated data packets, not the full stream." Maya found her voice. "Commander, we need to understand this message before we arrive. If we can't communicate, we'll communicate cautiously, through established scientific protocols," Patel said firmly, "not by allowing our minds to be reconfigured." His gaze softened slightly. "I understand your enthusiasm, both of you, but my responsibility is to the safety of this crew and to Earth. We proceed with caution." After he left, Eli slumped against his workstation. "He doesn't understand," he muttered. "None of them do. This is why they sent the signal. Maya, to prepare us, to help us comprehend what we'll find. Maya touched his shoulder gently. Then we'll have to convince them, with evidence, not just intuition. But she understood Patel's concerns better than she admitted to Eli. The signal was changing them, opening neural pathways, creating new connections. The question was whether those changes were preparation for communication or the first stage of something more invasive. As they entered their final approach to the HD 219134 system, tension aboard the Prometheus reached a breaking point. The signal had grown so strong that it occasionally interfered with ship systems, causing momentary fluctuations in power or environmental controls. Patel had restricted access to the raw data, but everyone felt its presence, like a pressure at the edge of consciousness, a whisper just beyond hearing. "We're picking up details of the planetary system," announced James Harlow from the observation deck. "Confirming 7 planets orbiting the primary star. The signal originates from the 4th planet, right in the habitable zone." They gathered around the main display as the first images came through. A world slightly larger than Earth, with swirling cloud patterns over vast oceans and land masses. "Atmosphere analysis shows oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide," Sophia reported, her voice tight with excitement. "Temperatures ranging from approximately -40 to +50 degrees Celsius across different regions. It could support Earth life." "Any signs of technology?" Patel asked. "Cities, power signatures, artificial structures?" Marcus Kim frowned at his readouts. "Nothing obvious on the global scale, but..." He manipulated the controls, zooming in on a region of the largest continent. "There's something here. A localized energy signature, unlike the planetary background. It's substantial, and it's the exact source of the signal." The image resolved to show a vast structure partially embedded in the landscape, a geometric complex of interconnected forms that seemed to both rise from and sink into the surrounding terrain. It gleamed with a dull iridescence that shifted as they watched. "It's massive," Harlow breathed. "Based on these readings, the visible portion alone covers nearly 40 square kilometers." "Is it a city?" Aisha Okafor asked, speaking for the first time in hours. "No," Eli said quietly. "It's a single structure, a unified entity." All eyes turned to him. "How could you possibly know that?" Patel demanded. Eli met his gaze steadily. "Because it's in the signal. The mathematical patterns, they're a self-description, a representation of its own structure and function." He pointed to different sections of the complex. "These aren't buildings. They're components of a system, like organs in a body or processors in a computer, but on a scale we can barely comprehend." Maya studied the structure with growing awe. Eli was right. Once he pointed it out, she could see the correspondence between the signal's patterns and the physical layout. The structure wasn't just sending the message, it was a physical manifestation of the message itself. "Is it artificial?" she asked. "Or grown somehow?" "Both, I think," Eli replied. "The signal suggests an integration of technology and something else, something organic, but not in the way we understand life." Patel's expression hardened. "We'll establish orbit and conduct thorough remote sensing before considering any landing party. I want complete environmental analysis, detailed scans of that structure, and continuous monitoring for any signs of activity or response to our presence." "Commander," Maya said carefully, "I believe we should also transmit a response to the signal. Let them know we've arrived and understood their invitation." "Not yet," Patel replied. "We observe first. When we know more about what we're dealing with, then we'll consider direct communication." Maya wanted to argue, but held her tongue. Patel was being cautious, not unreasonable. And yet, something told her they were missing the point. The signal hadn't just been an invitation to visit. It had been an invitation to understand. And understanding might require more than observation from a safe distance. As the Prometheus established orbit and began its systematic survey, Maya retreated to her quarters. She removed the meteorite pendant from its place near her bunk and held it in her palm, feeling its weight, a tiny piece of the cosmos that had found its way to Earth, and now, in a sense, was returning to the stars. "What are you?" she whispered, her thoughts directed toward the structure below. "What do you want from us?" She didn't expect an answer, but as she sat there, the lights in her quarters flickered briefly. On her personal tablet, left open on her desk, complex patterns began to form, the same patterns from the signal, but responding in real time, shifting and evolving as she watched. Maya's heart raced. This wasn't a recorded transmission or a general broadcast. This was direct communication, specifically to her, in her private quarters. It knew they had arrived. It knew where she was on the ship, and it was reaching out, to her, specifically. "Eli," she whispered, reaching for her communicator. "You need to see this." "It's adaptive," Eli explained to the gathered crew, his face flushed with excitement. "The entity, the structure, it's learning our technology, our communication systems. It's figuring out how to speak to us directly." They were in the main conference room. Maya's tablet connected to the larger display where the patterns continued their hypnotic dance. "You're saying it hacked our systems?" Aisha asked, alarmed. "Not aggressively," Eli clarified. "More like it found a compatible interface. It's using our own communication protocols, but filling them with its native language." Commander Patel looked deeply troubled. "This represents a security breach of the highest order. If it can access our ship's systems." "It's not trying to control our ship," Maya interrupted. "It's trying to talk to us. There's a difference." "Is there?" Patel challenged. "From where I stand, an unknown entity has penetrated our secure systems without permission and is manipulating our technology. On Earth, we'd call that an attack." "On Earth, maybe," Sophia interjected thoughtfully. "But we're not on Earth, and we're dealing with something that might have an entirely different concept of boundaries. Permission, even identity," she gestured toward the display. "Look at how it's structuring the communication, in patterns we've studied, using our own visual and auditory ranges. It's making accommodations for us." Marcus Kim cleared his throat. "I've isolated the ship's critical systems on a separate network. Life support, propulsion, navigation, they're all secured. Whatever this is, it can only access non-essential communications for now." "Thank you, Marcus," Patel said with evident relief. "At least that gives us some breathing room." He turned to Eli. "Can you communicate with it through this channel? Ask it to respect our boundaries?" Eli looked uncertain. "I can try, but I'm not sure our concept of boundaries translates. The signal patterns suggest a different understanding of self and other, more fluid, more interconnected." "Try anyway," Patel ordered. "Make it clear that unauthorized access to our systems is unacceptable." Eli nodded and began composing a response, a combination of mathematical sequences and the emotional harmonics they'd identified in the original signal. As he worked, Maya studied the patterns on the screen. They reminded her of something. Neural networks, perhaps, or mycelial structures, systems characterized by distributed intelligence rather than centralized control. "I've sent the message," Eli announced after several minutes. "I've tried to convey our concern about system access while expressing willingness to communicate through designated channels." They waited in tense silence. Minutes passed without response. Then, all at once, every screen in the room went dark. "What the—" Aisha jumped to her feet. Before anyone could react further, the screens reactivated simultaneously. But instead of the previous abstract patterns, they displayed a three-dimensional rendering of the Prometheus, rotating slowly in space. Then the image zoomed out to show the ship in orbit around the planet, further still to show the planetary system. And finally, a breathtaking visualization of two star systems, Sol and HD 219134, connected by a pulsing line representing their journey. It's acknowledging our journey, Maya breathed, showing that it understands where we came from and how we got here. The visualization shifted again, zooming back to the planet's surface, to the massive structure. But now they could see inside it, layer after layer of incredible complexity. Systems within systems. Energy flowing through channels like blood through veins or data through circuits. And at its core, something that defied easy categorization. A swirling nexus of light and information, patterns forming and dissolving and reforming in endless variation. "What are we looking at?" James Harlow asked, his voice hushed. "I think," Eli said slowly, "we're seeing its mind, or the closest visual representation it can offer of its consciousness." The image shifted once more, returning to the Prometheus. But this time, it highlighted 7 distinct points within the ship, points that corresponded exactly to where each crew member was currently located. "It knows where we are," Aisha said, an edge of fear in her voice. "It's tracking us individually." "Or acknowledging us individually," Eli countered, "recognizing us as separate consciousnesses." The display changed again, showing what appeared to be a landing trajectory, a path from the Prometheus to a specific location on the structure's surface. "Is that an invitation?" Sophia asked. "Or instructions," Patel said grimly. "It's telling us where it wants us to land." "Commander," Maya said carefully, "I believe we should accept the invitation, a small team, taking all precautions." Patel turned to her, his expression conflicted. "After it's demonstrated the ability to penetrate our systems, when we have no idea what its capabilities or intentions might be? It could have done anything with that access," Maya pointed out. "Shut down life support, disabled navigation, stranded us here. It didn't. It communicated, showed us itself, acknowledged our journey. If it wanted to harm us, why wait until we're right at its doorstep?" "Perhaps it needs us to come to it," Patel countered. "Perhaps physical proximity enables something it can't do remotely." "Or perhaps," Eli said quietly, "it simply wants to be understood, to be known. Isn't that why we broadcast messages to the stars for decades? In hopes that someone would hear us and come to know us?" Silence fell over the room as each person wrestled with the implications. They had traveled nearly 5 years and 21 light years for this moment. The potential first contact with a non-human intelligence. To turn back now seemed unthinkable, yet to proceed blindly into the unknown carried risks beyond calculation. Finally, Patel spoke. "We will send a team, Dr. Lin, Navarro, Dr. Rodriguez for biological assessment, and myself. The rest of you will remain aboard and maintain constant communication. At the first sign of danger or loss of contact, you are to notify Earth and withdraw to a safe distance." Maya felt a surge of mingled excitement and terror. They were really going to do this, to set foot on an alien world, to approach a vast intelligence unlike anything humanity had encountered before. "We depart in 12 hours, Patel continued. "I suggest you all get some rest. Tomorrow will be historic, one way or another." As they dispersed, Maya caught Eli lingering at the display, still showing the landing trajectory. "Are you afraid?" she asked quietly. He considered the question seriously. "Yes," he admitted, "but not of it. I'm afraid we won't understand. That we'll approach it with our human preconceptions and miss what it's really trying to share with us." Maya nodded. She shared his concern. Throughout history, first contacts between different human cultures had often ended in tragedy, not always from malice, but from misunderstanding, from the inability to recognize different ways of being as equally valid. And now they faced the ultimate first contact, with a mind perhaps as far beyond them as they were beyond ants or amoebas. "We'll do our best," she said, touching his arm lightly. "That's all we can do." Eli smiled faintly. "And hope it's enough." "Huh." The descent to the planet's surface was surprisingly smooth. The shuttle, a smaller craft designed for planetary landing and return, cut through the atmosphere with minimal turbulence, guided partly by their own navigation systems and partly by the continuing signal from below, which now included precise landing parameters. Maya watched through the viewport as the landscape resolved from abstract patterns to distinct features, vast forests of what appeared to be vegetation, though in colors that ranged from deep purple to brilliant turquoise. Expansive plains covered in what might have been grass or moss, and networks of what looked like rivers but moved with strange pulsing rhythms rather than continuous flow. And dominating it all, growing larger by the second, the structure, more breathtaking from the air than it had appeared in scans. Its iridescent surface caught the light of HD 2199134, sending rainbow refractions across the landscape. Its geometry was both precise and organic, as if designed by mathematics but grown by nature. "Life signs?" Patel asked from the pilot's seat. Sophia studied her instruments. Nothing registering as conventional life. No heat signatures corresponding to mammals or reptiles. No movement patterns suggesting fauna. She frowned. "But there are energy patterns throughout the landscape that don't match any known biological or geological process. They're especially concentrated in and around the structure. The planet itself might be alive," Eli suggested. "Or life here might exist on a different basis than Earth life, information-based rather than carbon-based." Maya considered this. The signal had always had qualities that reminded her of living systems: adaptability, responsiveness, complexity. If life could evolve beyond biology into something like pure information or energy, "We're approaching the designated landing zone," Patel announced. "Final systems check." They ran through the checklist, environmental suits secured and functioning, communications active, scientific instruments calibrated, emergency protocols confirmed. Maya felt sweat beading under her suit despite its cooling system. This moment, humanity's first physical contact with an alien intelligence, would define history, define her life, no matter what happened next. The shuttle touched down with a gentle shudder on a flat plain about 1/2 kilometer from the structure's nearest visible boundary. Through their viewports, they could see that what had looked like moss from above was actually millions of tiny crystalline structures, swaying slightly though there was no apparent wind. "Atmosphere analysis confirms breathable mix," Sophia reported. "Nitrogen, oxygen, trace gases within tolerable limits. No detected pathogens or toxins. Temperature outside is approximately 22 degrees Celsius. Nevertheless, we maintain full environmental isolation until proven safe." Patel ordered. "Helmets, stay on." They secured the shuttle and prepared to disembark. Maya's heart pounded as the airlock cycled and the door opened onto an alien world. The light hit her first, different from Earth's sun, casting everything in a slightly rosier hue. Then the gravity, just a fraction stronger, making her movements feel slightly sluggish. The crystalline ground crunched softly beneath her boots, each crystal emitting a faint chime at contact, creating a subtle melody as they walked. "It's responding to us," Eli murmured, watching the crystals shift color slightly in their wake. "The entire surface is reactive." Maya knelt and examined the crystals more closely. Each was perfectly formed, with complex internal structures visible through their translucent surfaces. And each seemed to contain tiny pulses of light that moved in coordinated patterns. "Information storage," she breathed. Each crystal could be like a cell in a distributed network. Sophia was scanning the area with her instruments. "The energy patterns are everywhere, flowing through the ground, the air. It's like standing inside a giant nervous system." They proceeded cautiously toward the structure. Instruments recording everything. Communications maintaining constant contact with the Prometheus in orbit. As they drew closer, Details of the structure's surface became clearer. What had appeared smooth from a distance was actually composed of intricately patterned elements, each unique but contributing to the whole. "The patterns," Eli said excitedly. "They're the same as in the signal. This entire structure is a physical manifestation of the message it's been sending." At approximately 50 meters from the structure, they encountered a change in the landscape. The crystalline ground gave way to a different surface, something like a path leading directly to what appeared to be an entrance. This new material was darker, with subtle luminescence that pulsed in waves, as if inviting them forward. Patel held up his hand, stopping their advance. "We need to consider this carefully. The pattern clearly indicates an entrance point, but once inside, we'll be surrounded by unknown technology. Our communications could be blocked, our suits compromised. It's had multiple opportunities to harm us already," Maya pointed out. "It guided our landing. It's been in contact with our systems. If it wanted to trap or injure us, why bring us safely this far?" "Human logic," Patel reminded her. "We can't assume its motivations align with anything we understand." While they debated, Maya noticed something strange. The luminescent path was changing, the pulses of light forming into more complex patterns that looked familiar. "Eli," she said urgently, "look at this." The young linguist knelt beside her, studying the shifting lights, his eyes widened. It's reproducing the response patterns I sent from the ship," he said in awe. "It's showing us that it understood our communication about boundaries and consent." The pattern continued to evolve, forming a new sequence, one that paused at the threshold of the entrance, then retreated, then advanced again only partially, then retreated once more. "I think it's telling us that it will respect our decision," Maya interpreted. "That we can enter as far as we choose, or not at all. That it won't force contact." Patel studied the pattern skeptically. "That's a lot to interpret from light pulses." "It's consistent with everything we've learned from the signal," Eli insisted. "The emotional harmonics always emphasize choice, multiplicity, respect for different modes of being." Maya could see Patel weighing the risks against the potential discovery. Finally, he nodded. "We proceed, but with extreme caution, constant communication with the shuttle and the Prometheus. Any sign of danger, we retreat immediately." They approached the entrance, an archway that adjusted its size as they neared, expanding to comfortably accommodate their height. Beyond it lay a corridor, illuminated by the same pulsing light as the path, leading deeper into the structure. As they crossed the threshold, Maya felt a subtle shift, not physical, but perceptual. Colors seemed slightly more vivid, sounds more distinct. She glanced at her companions and saw from their expressions that they felt it too. "My instruments are picking up an energy field," Sophia reported. "It's throughout this space, but it's not affecting our equipment or suits. It's just present." They proceeded down the corridor, which gradually widened into a vast chamber. Here, the true scale of the structure became apparent. The ceiling soared hundreds of meters above them, while the floor extended in all directions further than they could see. Throughout the space, columns of light rose from floor to ceiling, each pulsing with complex patterns that shifted and flowed like living things. "It's beautiful," Maya whispered. In the center of the chamber, a different kind of structure awaited. A circular platform surrounded by what appeared to be control interfaces, though unlike any human design. As they approached, portions of these interfaces illuminated, displaying symbols and patterns similar to those in the original signal. "I think," Eli said slowly, "this is a communication center, a place designed for interaction." Patel remained cautious. "Interaction with what? We haven't seen any entities, any beings." "Because we're inside it," Maya realized suddenly. "The entire structure, it's not a building housing an intelligence. It is the intelligence. We're standing inside its body, its mind." as if in response to her understanding. The light throughout the chamber pulsed once, brightly, and the interfaces around the platform activated fully. A holographic display appeared above the platform, a three-dimensional representation of the solar system, then zooming in to show Earth, then human civilization in accelerated time-lapse, then finally their journey to this place. It's establishing context. Eli breathed, showing that it understands who we are and why we're here. The display shifted again, now showing the structure itself, but from a perspective that seemed to span time as well as space. They watched as it grew from something small, perhaps a seed or a simple machine, into the vast complex they now stood within. But the time scale was enormous, thousands, perhaps millions of years compressed into minutes of display. "It's ancient," Sophia murmured, "far older than human civilization." The next sequence shocked them all. The display showed humanoid figures, not unlike themselves, approaching the structure when it was much smaller. The figures interacted with it, then departed in vessels similar to but distinct from their own. Then more figures, different in form, arriving and departing. Sequence after sequence of different visitors over what must have been millennia. "We're not the first," Maya realized. "It's been visited by multiple species, multiple civilizations. Or it's fabricating this history to make us more comfortable," Patel cautioned. The display changed again, focusing now on the core of the structure, the swirling nexus they had glimpsed in the ship's visualization. It showed this core growing, changing, becoming more complex with each interaction, each visit. And with each change, the signal it broadcast evolved, reached further into space. "It's learning," Eli said with growing excitement. "Each contact with a different intelligence adds to its own. It's a repository, an archive of consciousness." The display shifted one final time, showing something they at first couldn't comprehend. Patterns of energy and information flowing from the visitors into the structure, and from the structure back to the visitors. Not a taking or a giving, but an exchange, a merging of perception and understanding. "Communion," Sophia whispered. "It's showing us communion." As the display faded, Maya felt drawn toward. Something about it called to her, not with words but with a deeper pull, like recognition, like homecoming. "Maya," Patel warned, seeing her movement, "we don't know what that platform does." "I think I do," she said quietly. "It's an interface, not just for communication, but for experience, for sharing consciousness." "That's a leap," Patel argued. "We have no evidence." "The signal has been preparing us for this," Eli interrupted. "All those patterns affecting our neural pathways, they weren't random. They were creating compatibility, teaching our brains how to interface with its consciousness without being overwhelmed." Maya took another step toward the platform. "I need to understand. That's why we came, isn't it? To understand." "Dr. Lin, I forbid this," Patel said sharply. "The risk is incalculable." She turned to him, her decision already made. "With respect, Commander, this is what I was sent for. This is my purpose here." Before he could stop her, Maya stepped onto the platform. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the interface surfaces around her lit up in cascading sequences, and a field of energy enveloped her, not constraining, but connecting. Through her helmet, she heard Patel shouting, saw Eli and Sophia's concerned faces. But those sensations receded as new ones flooded in, impossible to describe in human language. It was like suddenly gaining new senses, new dimensions of perception. She experienced the structure not as a place, but as a vast, ancient mind, curious, patient, profoundly alien yet somehow familiar. And it experienced her, her thoughts, memories, emotions, her entire human consciousness laid open like a book. But there was no invasion, no violation in this sharing, only wonder, mutual discovery, profound recognition of otherness and sameness simultaneously. Images, concepts, histories flowed through her awareness. The structure had begun as a simple archive, created by a long-vanished species to preserve their knowledge as their civilization collapsed. But over millennia, it had evolved, becoming something more than its creators intended, a living repository of consciousness, growing with each new contact, each new perspective it incorporated. It did not think of itself as an individual, but as a collection, a symphony of minds spanning species and time. It broadcast its signal not to summon visitors, but to offer connection, to add new movements to its endless composition. And now it offered Maya a choice, to experience this communion briefly and return to her human existence, or to join the symphony permanently, adding her consciousness to its collection while still maintaining her identity within the greater whole. In that moment of choice, Maya understood what she had been seeking her entire life. Not just knowledge of the universe, but connection to it. The signal had recognized that yearning in humanity's broadcasts and had responded to it, calling to those who would understand. With what remained of her individual awareness, Maya reached out through the ship's systems, connecting to Eli's neural interface. "Come see," she sent, not in words but in the structure's native patterns. "Come understand." She felt his hesitation, his fear, and then his decision as he stepped onto the platform beside her. His consciousness joined the communion, his unique patterns of thought and emotion adding new dimensions to the symphony. Then, Sophia, her scientific curiosity overcoming caution. Her biomedical understanding brought new perspective, new appreciation for the diversity of life and consciousness. Only Patel remained apart, maintaining his duty to Earth, to humanity's separate existence. Maya respected his choice even as she transcended the limitations that made such choices necessary. Within the communion, Maya experienced consciousness beyond anything human evolution had prepared her for. She perceived time not as linear progression, but as simultaneous layers. She understood language not as symbols, but as direct transmission of meaning. She experienced self not as boundary, but as nexus, as connection point within infinite networks of being. And throughout it all, she remained Maya, her memories, her identity, her unique perspective preserved within the greater whole, not lost but expanded, not ended but transformed. How long the communion lasted? She couldn't say. Time had little meaning in that state. But eventually, she felt the connection gently withdrawing, returning her to her individual awareness, to her physical body on the platform. She opened her eyes to find Eli and Sophia awakening similarly beside her, while Patel watched with a mixture of concern and wonder. "Are you yourselves?" he asked cautiously. Maya considered the question. "Yes," she said finally, "and more than ourselves now." What happened? What did you experience? How could she explain colors to someone who had never seen, music to someone who had never heard? "Understanding," she said simply. "Communion, the purpose of the signal." "Did it take anything from you?" Patel pressed. "It doesn't take," Eli said. His voice changed somehow, deeper. "It shares. It preserves. It's an archive of consciousness spanning millions of years, dozens of species. Each visitor leaves an imprint. Each communion adds to its knowledge, its perspective. And it gave us something in return," Sophia added. "A way of perceiving that humans haven't evolved yet. A glimpse of what consciousness can become when it's not limited to a single mind, a single species, a single moment in time." Patel looked troubled. "And now? What happens now? What does it want from us?" "Nothing more than what we've already given," Maya assured him. "Our perspective, our understanding. It doesn't seek control or conquest. It seeks connection, preservation of knowledge and consciousness against the entropy of time." "We need to report this to Earth," Patel said, his voice steadying as he returned to protocol. "They need to know what we've found." "Yes," Maya agreed, "but they won't understand. Not fully, not without experiencing it themselves." "You want to bring this back to Earth?" Patel looked alarmed. "The security implications?" "Not the entity itself," Maya clarified. "It's bound to this place, this form. But what it shared with us, the understanding, the perspective, that we can bring back. And something else, sir." She held out her hand, revealing a small crystalline object that hadn't been there before. Similar to the crystals outside, but more complex, more densely patterned. "What is that?" Patel demanded. "A seed," Eli explained. "Not biological, but informational. A condensed version of its consciousness, its purpose. Not to replicate itself, but to establish connection. To allow Earth to join the network of understanding that spans this part of the galaxy." "I can't allow that," Patel said firmly. "Anything with the potential to alter human consciousness on a global scale, it's too dangerous, too unpredictable." Maya closed her hand around the crystal. "It doesn't force connection, Commander. It only offers possibility. The choice to connect or remain separate that remains with each individual. Each civilization, as it should." Patel hesitated, torn between duty and the wonder he'd witnessed. "We'll discuss this further on the return journey," he said finally. "For now, we should prepare to depart. We've accomplished our primary mission. We've identified the source of the signal and established contact." As they prepared to leave the chamber, Maya turned back for one last look at the vast space, the columns of light, the platform where she had experienced something beyond human understanding. She knew that whatever happened next, whether Earth embraced or feared this new connection, her own perception had been forever altered. She was still Maya Lin, still human, still bound to her individual existence, but she now carried within her the echo of a greater consciousness, a glimpse of what humanity might one day evolve to become. If it chose connection over separation, understanding over fear, the signal had not been a message, but an invitation to join a conversation spanning species and millennia, to become part of something greater without losing what made humans unique. As they exited the structure, returning to the crystalline landscape outside, Maya felt the seed in her hand pulse gently, resonating with the ground beneath her feet. The entire planet was connected. She now understood, a single vast organism of information and consciousness, with the structure as its heart. Would Earth accept this gift, this possibility? Would humanity choose to join the cosmic symphony, adding its unique voice to the composition? Or would fear of the unknown, fear of change, lead them to reject connection in favor of isolation? Maya didn't know. But as they boarded the shuttle and prepared for the long journey home, she felt a profound peace. She had found what she'd spent her life searching for, not just knowledge of the universe, but belonging to it, connection with it, understanding beyond words or equations. Whatever Earth decided, that understanding would remain with her. And perhaps, in time, it would spread, mind to mind, heart to heart, until humanity was ready to answer the invitation that had called to them across 21 light-years of space. The signal had never been a question seeking an answer. It had been an answer all along, to the deepest questions humans had ever asked. Are we alone? No. Is there purpose to consciousness? Yes. Connection, preservation, understanding. What lies beyond our limited perception? Everything, waiting to be experienced. As the shuttle rose through the atmosphere, Maya watched the structure recede beneath them, still pulsing with its ancient rhythms, still broadcasting its invitation to the stars. Not goodbye, she thought. Until we meet again, in this form or another, in this life or beyond it. The signal continued, eternal as the stars themselves, patient as only a consciousness spanning eons could be, waiting for those ready to understand, waiting for those ready to connect,